Here's a Honda XL 350 which has been brought here for me to have a look at, and one of the reported issues is it smokes quite heavily, especially when it's started up. Apparently it settles down a bit after it's run for a while, but you can actually see where the exhaust has spattered the back of the number plate there with oily spots, and inside the silencer looks quite wet and oily, whether we can pick that up on the camera. But I've actually run this engine briefly, probably only for about a minute or so actually, because the phone rang and interrupted me, and then I got the idea. I've already dipped the oil and found that it's over full. I'll do that, I'll demonstrate that in a moment. The first thing I plan to do is to lower the oil level to the correct mark and see what happens then, because it looks like it's dramatically over full to me. Usually I know on my own Honda CB500T that when you check the oil you don't even screw the dipstick in, you just rest it on the threads. So I've done likewise with this one, and still the oil is way over the high mark on the dipstick. So I'll just demonstrate that, and then I'll start it up afterwards and we'll have a look at the smoke. So I'll put the camera down here while I just get the dipstick out. I'll stand the bike up level. Obviously there's no centre stand on this one. We'll have a look at the oil level on the dipstick. So I'll just level the bike up a little bit and we'll have a look. Yeah, that's pretty much dead upright, I'd say there. The dipstick resting on the threads, the oil is up to here. So that's got to be quite a substantial amount more than it would have in there if it was just up to the high mark. So I will lower the oil and try it again, but for now I'll just start it up and we'll see the smoke is pumping out as it is. Maybe not. Did actually smoke quite a bit heavier than that when I cold started it. I ran it for the first minute or so, but there's still some smoke coming out there. Mileage there is believed to be correct, so there really shouldn't be anything worn out, but I'll lower the oil level in the engine, try it again and see what we get. And I'm told that once it's warmed up the smoke clears. Usually if an engine's in a bad way they start up quite clean and get more smoky as they warm up, so it may be that things aren't quite so bad as they first appear. So I'll lower the oil level and then see how it behaves after that. Fingers crossed it might just do the job, you never know. I'm glad I took the front wheel off this Honda XL 350 to have a look at the front brake, and this confirms my doubts. The lining there is coming unstuck off the shoe, so that's why it was sort of grabby and there was a delay in it releasing, so I'll have to see what I can do about that. Looks like someone's already been at the other one. Looks wet round there. Obviously that's glue that someone else has put on this one to stick this one back. What you get is you get corrosion between the aluminium of the brake shoe and the underside of the lining that's just glued to it, and once there's enough corrosion the glue can't do anything anymore and the lining comes off, and it, especially in the front wheel, could end up quite nasty. So I might be able to stick that back down, or if I need to I can always possibly drill through there and put a rivet in like the old-fashioned brake shoes used to have, and that will sort that out. But if there's any doubt about the brakes, always best to take a look. I'm glad I had a look in there. Here I am back with that front brake assembly from the Honda XL 350, and I decided to have a go at sticking this lining back on. I've used super glue, but what I did is I put a thin bladed screwdriver in between the lining and the shoe, just prised the lining up to open up a gap as much as I could without breaking it. It was still stuck, so 2/3 of the way around pretty much. So I raised the unstuck area, got the airline in and blew all the dust and corrosion out from between the two, and then I poured super glue in and then clamped the lining to the shoe with a G-clamp and left it while I went in and had my lunch, and it seems to have done the job. It seems to have stuck quite well, and I'm happy to give that a go actually. And since actually sort of removing the front wheel and dismantling it, I can see there's little ledges there on the shoes at the ends where the ends of the linings meet them, so it's like a sort of rebate. So even if a lining came completely unstuck, it couldn't actually go anywhere. It couldn't sort of rotate round and overlap and jam on the other one or anything, so that's given me peace of mind as well. But the lining is stuck down now, hopefully, as it should be. Perhaps the slight fault that I felt with the brake when I was wheeling the bike around, if you pulled the brake on, the brake would sort of stay on momentarily even if you let go and the lever sprang back, and it was all to do with this loose bit of lining, I suppose, grabbing the surface of the drum and not quite releasing instantly. But I'm glad it drew my attention to the brake and made me take the front wheel off and have a look. So it's all cleaned up now, and I've deglazed the shoes. I'm going to do the same with the brake drum before I put the brake back together and put the front wheel back on, but I'll be happy to give this bike a try up the road after attending to that and knowing what it was, and that it wasn't actually perhaps going to be a fatal thing if anything did let go. It's always nice to know that your front wheel's not going to lock up, I find. We now got the front wheel back on the XL 350 with the front brake sorted. The brake lining is glued back onto the shoe, and I've also removed some oil from the engine so that the dipstick now shows the oil on the high mark rather than anywhere between quarter and near half an inch above it. So just on the off chance, I'm going to try and start it now. It may well still smoke, but we'll give it a go. So I'll just put the camera down and we'll see what happens. Well, still smoky, but talking to the owner, what we decided to do, because he said the smoke clears after you've run it for a short while or done a couple of miles, is we agreed that I'd take it for a short ride just to see if anything develops and perhaps the smoke clears, because I don't think he's done much on it at all. So I want to do about 5 or 10 miles on it, because another possibility is there could be some residual oil in the exhaust possibly as well. Not that I'm known for my optimism, but it'd be a shame to take the engine out and pull it all to bits and then find out there was about a quarter of a pint of oil in the silencer, because perhaps somebody poured some in there to stop it rusting or something. You never know. So I'm going to get ready to go and have a ride on it next, and then see what it's like after that, I think. Right, let's take a short ride on this XL 350 and see if the smoke clears or stays the same or gets worse or whatever it might do. Best just to give the benefit of the doubt to it for a few miles, just in case. So that's what I'll do, and then I'll have a look at it when it's come back here, and I'll also let it cool off, of course. Give another cold start then, and see what we got. Right, well, in spite of the camera making it look otherwise, we did actually make the whole journey there. It's just for some reason the camera decided it wanted to stop filming, so we didn't get the complete run. But what I saw in my mirror, especially on the main road stretches, was lots of thick smoke coming out of that exhaust, and I feel a bit sorry for whoever it was in that white car that we overtook, because they must have had difficulty to see ahead of them after we got past them. We've got quite a bit more oil spatter on the back of the number plate now. I certainly don't think that the smoke settles down after you've done a few miles. It did seem to settle down a bit while we were on the lanes, even going up Bantam Hill, but the faster main road stretches, it was not good at all. Even the main road stretch back after Llansadwrn village, which wasn't on the film, it wasn't in the video by then, I looked in the mirror there and it was still laying clouds. So I'd expect that the oil level on the dipstick has probably dropped, either that or there must have been a huge quantity in the exhaust, but we'll see. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and let it cool down, check the oil again, and unless it's dropped dramatically I might start it again and see what happens. I'll also have a look at the spark plug, see what that's looking like. If that's not oily, then it's got to be in the silencer or the exhaust pipe or going through the exhaust valve guide. So we shall see about that as well. But that's where we're at the moment. Bit of a strange one this as well. The steering, not unpleasant or anything, but it doesn't steer quite how you might expect it to. But probably get used to it. The brakes are not out of this world. And the suspension, the front suspension I would say is harder than the Trials Cub. The rear suspension is probably softer, and I don't think you get around those lanes any faster on something like this than the Trials Cub anyway, because you just haven't got the room to get going. But overall it's got a nice bike, or should be, but we'll have to have a look and see why it's smoking, and I'm suspecting it's probably going to be a top end strip and rebuild to some degree at least. It's very unlikely that that's going to clear, because it was smoking quite badly when we got back as well actually. So I'll let it cool off, check the oil, and then speak to the owner, and we'll obviously form a plan and see what we're going to do next with it. Well, I've just taken the spark plug out of this XL350 after that smoky ride, and it does look a little oily. You know, soaked in oil, but there is oiliness there, so certainly means that it's not just an exhaust valve guide or seal. It could be piston rings or inlet valve and guide related as well, the fact that there's oil on the tip of the plug like that. So that's not great news. And I'm also, the other strange thing is, after that ride, and there was a lot of smoke, I've already had the dipstick out. It hasn't had long to stand and settle actually, and the oil level still appears to be right on the full mark where I adjusted it to after draining some out when it was overfilled. So I half expected that the oil level might have dropped further than that. It doesn't even appear to have dropped at all, but I suppose we've probably done 8 miles, something like that there, perhaps 8 or 9 miles, there or thereabouts. Just pulled the breather pipe off the crankcase breather as well. I thought it might have gone to a canister or something like that, and I was just going to see if anything was blocked, but that's all. You just about see through that. I've blown through it, there's no problem with that. So it's looking more and more like a top end strip on this one, I think, to get to the bottom of what's going on with it.